Over on the Republican side, they're having a really normal one about this. There is a lot of free. I mean, you can imagine from their perspective, they were looking at a cakewalk. They're thinking about, hey, maybe we're going to win New Jersey. New York seems to be in play. We're definitely winning Virginia. We can pick J.D. Vance. Who cares if he's got these like wild out there things he said and super online? We like the guy and we're going to win anyway, so we're just going to put him on the ticket. They go through the whole RNC and then the rug gets pulled out from under them. Not that Kamala Harris is the most formidable candidate in the world, right? Obviously, we're going to talk more about this, and Ryan's pulled some great clips of why she has struggled in the past, and those reasons are very real. But you don't get that same sense of terror and dread when she begins a sentence, that she's not going to be able to remember what she was talking about by the time she gets to the end of the sentence, right?
But it's a different kind of dread.
It's more of like a weird, like, are you on something kind of a vibe.
Don't mix the barbiturates and the wine or whatever.
It's more like that, which is kind of fun. It's a different sense of concern for where the sentence is going. In any case, here we have Stephen Miller over on Fox News just absolutely losing it about what is unfolding. Let's take a listen.
They held a primary. People, they had ballots. They filled out circles. They went to the voting booths. They spent money on advertisements. And as President Trump said, the Republican Party spent tens of millions of dollars running against Joe Biden. Now they just woke up one morning and said, never mind, we're canceling the entire primary. We're getting rid of our candidate, and we're pretending the election has never even happened, and we're going to let donors handpick a new nominee. They're publicly admitting that they are an oligarchy. They are not running a democracy. They are not running a representative republic. This is an oligarchy controlled by business interests. And the Democratic Convention is the private corporation that represents those business interests. This is as full frontal an attack on American democracy as we've ever seen in the history of America's major political parties.
I think his concerns about oligarchy might land a little better if his side hadn't just gotten the backing of Elon Musk to the tune of $45 million a month. And lots of other, billionaires as well. As vice presidential pick is the hand-picked candidate of billionaire Peter Thiel. So not sure they got a lot of credibility here to talk about oligarchy in American politics.
And also Democrats overdo the January 6th stuff. But if you did January 6th, to say that this, Joe Biden stepping down, is the biggest full frontal assault on American democracy, when there was an actual assault.
It's a bit rich.
Come on.
It's a bit rich. Yeah, no doubt about it. We have some more Republican reaction we can give you from the Trump campaign and the way that they are framing this. Their, immediate pivot to try to tie Kamala Harris to Biden because Biden is so unpopular. They own each other's records, speaking of Biden and Harris, and there is no distance between the two. Harris must defend the failed Biden administration and her liberal weak on crime record in California. Joe Biden cannot take himself out of a campaign for president because he's too mentally incompetent and still remain in the White House. That's been a key part of their messaging, is like, all right, well, he needs to resign. Which, to be honest with you, I'm not sure, I don't totally get the strategy of pushing for that, because let's say that Joe Biden, by the way, I actually kind of agree with that line of reasoning. Like, if you're too mentally feeble to be able to campaign, are you really in command of your faculties enough right now to be president of the United States? I actually think that's a fair view. But from a political perspective, doesn't it just make Kamala Harris stronger if she's actually the incumbent president running on the ticket, and people get to see her, because that's part of this whole thing, is like imagining you as commander-in-chief. People get to actually see her as commander-in-chief.
She could drop some bombs, yeah.
Right, that's right. It's what Americans love. So I'm not sure I really get the strategy here outside of just, we're going to tie the two of them together. We're going to make it clear that she was part of this Biden health cover-up and besmirch her that way as well, which again, I think there are some fair points there. But the other thing that I saw, Ryan, is that on Fox News, they were going into this, and New York Times was also floating that one of the things that they're going to run against her is that she was for Medicare for all. So God forbid, that she may have some attachment to healthcare for everyone, which no one should really take her seriously about at this point anyway.
That was one of the funniest moments in our politics, when there was a debate and it was like one of those hands up questions, and the question was, should we ban private insurance? And Kamala Harris, ban private insurance. That no greater signal of how kind of left the party's, at least presidential candidates, had shifted at that point.
Right.
Meanwhile, in Congress at that very time, they couldn't even get the Medicare negotiation package through, that allowing Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices. Like, they couldn't even get that through a Democratic-controlled House. Meanwhile, their presidential candidates were all saying we're going to ban private insurance. The next day, even more hilariously, she said she misheard the question.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I remember there was like a stream there of a few misheard questions from Kamala Harris where she
ban private insurance. No.
I don't know what she thought that they said, but yeah, there were a couple of instances like that. I wish I could remember the specifics off the top of my head, where she gave the wrong answer and then pretended like she didn't hear what they had said. So again, these are some of the reasons why she did not succeed particularly effectively in the Democratic primary back in 2020. We can put Trump's reaction here up on the screen, C2. He is also melting down over what he's describing as fraud. He says, so we are forced to spend time and money on fighting crooked Joe Biden. He pulls badly after having a terrible debate and quits the race. Now we have to start all over again. Shouldn't the Republican Party be reimbursed for fraud, in that everybody around Joe, including his doctors and the fake news media, knew he was not capable of running for or being president? Just asking.
Love that.
So, I mean, it is, I like the end, hashtag just asking. So, I mean, listen, again, I have some understanding for their position. They just did the whole RNC running against Joe Biden, and now it's like all just out the window. It's like the RNC just basically didn't happen. Also, I'm sure Trump is really irritated that, you know, he had an attempt on his life that came within an inch of succeeding. How long now? Just over a week ago. And already the conversation has completely moved past that, which seems really wild and crazy. And now they don't know who the VP pick is going to be, and they've got to go back to the drawing board about what this campaign is going to look like. But this Truth Social that he posted is also, it's a bit of an admission of weakness, that they're concerned about having to go up against Kamala Harris, who, again, isn't anywhere close to the most formidable Democratic candidate that they could potentially face. I think the fear is, and I've seen some people saying this online, that, you know, basically anyone but Joe Biden could beat Donald Trump. That the real thing, the primary thing that was holding Joe Biden back from being in a position to win, was just his age. And so even if you just swap in his vice presidential, the vice president of the United States, who has her own political liabilities, but just the fact that she is not old and not in obvious mental decline could be enough.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And now they're, because they've gone from, like, I think feeling like they had a guaranteed victory to now feeling like they're very likely to win.
Yeah, but they're gonna have to fight for it.
It's much more fun to have a guaranteed coasting to victory than to actually fight for it.
Do you think J.D. Vance would have been the pick if they knew Biden was gonna drop?
Probably not.
Yeah.
And you could imagine that everything lined up for J.D. Vance, in the sense that if the assassination doesn't happen even on Saturday night, there was so much momentum to push Biden off the ticket that by that Monday, there were supposed to be a ton of senators and House members coming out like that Monday. There was that call that went horribly where he attacked Jason Crow for having like a Bronze Star.
Right.
And everyone on the call is like, oh, this guy's got to go.
Yeah.
And they're like writing the statement, and then the shots ring out in Butler, Pennsylvania, and they're like, hold on, can't do this now. So they put the whole thing on pause. They say, well, let's hold this until at least next week. And then in the days after that, Trump's like, I got this. And then Monday, they're like, we're doing J.D. Vance. And then by Wednesday, they're like, actually, we're still getting rid of Biden. So there was like a 3-day period over the course of like the entire year where J.D. Vance could have been named the vice president. And that happened, and the Monday of the convention happened to fall within that 3-day window. And he got through. And maybe he becomes vice president and president as a result of this.
It's very possible. Yeah. Very possible, if not likely, because you definitely have to view Harris still as an underdog. We're going to show you in the next block, when we dig in more on her, what the polling looks like today, which I think deserves a lot of caveats, because people aren't good at hypotheticals. Like, How would you feel if it was Kamala Harris is different than it is Kamala Harris? How do you feel now?
Right.
So we'll see what the polls look like once that question is much more real to people. Can you explain for people, Ryan, why is your view that J.D. Vance is a poor pick electorally, why there were other picks. What is it about him, his views, his, identity, whatever, that you think makes it so that there was just this window of time where they weren't really concerned about the electoral concerns that allows him to sneak onto the ticket?
I mean, the best argument for him is that maybe he gives like Rust Belt votes.
Yeah.
But they're going to win Ohio anyway, so it doesn't add anything demographically.
And he actually underperformed in Ohio in his race against Tim Ryan, who was not like any sort of spectacular being either.
I think the main answer is abortion, is that, the thing that has propelled Democrats to the polls is abortion rights ever since Dobbs. And J.D. Vance is on record with some, pretty strong opinions on abortion rights. And so Trump, despite being the guy that put the 3 justices on the court and celebrates the fact that he overturned Roe, very much wants to be the moderate on the question of abortion rights. Mm-hmm. That's how he's playing it. Telling all the abortion opponents to go pound sand, like this is how we're going to do it. And then to attach J.D. Vance just makes that a much more difficult road to hoe. And if that's your main issue, and you've made your main issue, if that's your main problem, and you made your main problem worse, then you've just hurt yourself a tiny bit.
Yeah. Let's put C3. You could just put these like sequentially up on the screen. We got a bunch of like right-wing influencer types who are all saying that this was a coup. The announcement comes after the Democratic Party staged a successful coup on Biden. We could put the next one up on the screen. Cat Turd weighing in. You just saw a real coup today. Let's put the next one up on the screen. This is like Cernovich, a coup before our very eyes. He's quote tweeting the Biden letter. I think we have one more in this lineup. We are witnessing a third world style coup engineered by oligarchs as we speak, and it isn't going to be pretty. Stay calm, folks. It's about to get crazy. Libs of TikTok also on the coup messaging. What do you think this will have any resonance, Ryan? Because
no.
It is undemocratic. Like, Democrats, the country are not going to get to weigh in on who the nominee is likely to be. It's going to be Kamala Harris. But, obviously these same individuals were not so concerned about Democratic Party disenfranchisement when the Democratic Party just decided to shut down a primary a while ago.
Right. And also, not running for re-election is not the same thing as losing power. The irony is that pretty much every single one of those people that we had up on the screen there wants Biden to resign under pressure.
Right.
Which would be more of a coup than just not
running for re-election.
Running for re-election.
Which is, a normal decision to make.
If a massive, overwhelming supermajority of Democrats didn't want Biden to step down, I think they would have an excellent point. But they do.
Right.
And he's not leaving power. He's not running for office. And we don't have and also they're going to vote at the convention. Like, they can vote for Biden if they want. What happened to him is that he was pressured out of power.
Right.
Coups are on a spectrum. Like when Evo Morales stepped down in 2019 under massive pressure, that was a coup because it was undemocratic. It was orchestrated behind the scenes. There was fraud in how the voting was manipulated, et cetera. That you don't have here. That here you have everything being done transparently. Yeah. Like, you sucked at this debate. You looked demented. We want you out. And that was not subterfuge for some other things. Now everybody has different motivations, but that was the leading motivation for everybody. Which we know because they had fully closed ranks around Biden before this moment. So if it was really, an ideological, like the oligarchs are no longer happy with Joe Biden because of his, because of Lena Khan and antitrust or whatever, the real time to have pushed him out would have been when you had the possibility of a primary process. Instead, they did the opposite. Instead, they did the opposite. And in fact, if you had to me, the real breakdown in democracy happens much earlier on because you have had an overwhelming majority of the country and a clear majority of Democrats saying, we want other choices. We want to have a competitive primary process this entire time. So if you had a more reflective democracy, a healthier democracy, you would have had the ability to evaluate your choices. You would have had the ability to evaluate Biden's fitness
much earlier on than, at this one debate that he sort of, on a, I think I'm not even sure he expected Trump to take him up on his whole, like, I'll debate you anytime, any place kind of a deal. And because of that, we're able to get this tiny little glimpse, this tiny little working of democracy where the actual will of the people who want to move past Biden, and by the way, also want to move past Donald Trump, is able to be effectuated.
An interesting point on that. People have said the most consequential thing here was Joe Biden offering this debate in June. I don't think that's right. The most consequential thing and mistake was Trump accepting it. If Trump had said, look, I don't like these conditions, it's fake tapper, no audience, it's rigged.
Fake tapper.
You're going to cut my mic, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
We're not going to debate until September. Then the Democratic elites would have spent June through September lying about his condition and his capacity again.
Yeah.
And then in September, he would have gone into the debate worse probably than June because it's degenerative and it's getting worse. And he just completely falls apart. And at that point, there is no taking him off the ticket. And then Trump from there coasts to an absolute landslide victory.
Yeah.
So the mistake was not Biden offering the debate. The mistake was Trump accepting it. But hey, American hero, he did it for us because now we don't have the risk of Joe Biden serving another 4 terms when he clearly is not capable of
He's clearly not capable.
physically doing it.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.